She was thrown against her own car, hand twisted behind her back. And the cop didn't even ask her name. The only thing he saw was her skin. What he didn't know was that the woman he just attacked had the power to erase his entire career with a single phone call, because the woman he just humiliated was one of the richest black women in America. And what made this worse? Someone was watching. Someone powerful, someone he should have never messed with, and just 3 blocks away. A teenage boy gave up his seat for a tired pregnant woman on a crowded bus, a simple gesture, nothing heroic, until she handed him a folded note and said, "You don't know what you just did, but you will." That note would change his life forever. To strangers, one injustice, and a secret that would shake the entire city by nightfall. It started like any other day. Leona Brooks stepped out of her car dressed in navy blue, her steps calm, her expression collected. She had parked near a small cafe to meet a donor quietly, away from headlines, away from flashing lights. She liked to keep things quiet. She had spent her life building a billion-dollar tech empire, not for attention, but for legacy. No security detail today. No assistant trailing her, just her briefcase, and a file full of grant papers that would change lives for thousands of kids in underserved schools. Her silence was power, but to one cop, her silence looked like guilt. The squad car had been parked across the street for about 5 minutes, engine still humming. Then the door flew open like it had been waiting for a moment to explode. The officer stepped out, tall, white, buzz cut, sunglasses on, hand resting casually on his belt. He didn't smile, didn't introduce himself, just stared, then said one thing. "Ma'am, is that your vehicle?" Leona turned, eyebrows raised slightly. "Yes." "Is something wrong, officer?" He stepped closer. "You match a description." Car theft suspect, black female, early 40s, driving a black SUV. Her voice stayed level. "I'm not a suspect, that's my vehicle. And I have the registration inside." But it didn't matter. He had already decided what he wanted to see. He waved her off sharply. "Step back. Don't reach into the car." "I wasn't going to," I said. "Step away from the vehicle, now." Voices around them quieted. A woman walking her dog slowed down. A barista inside the cafe peered through the window. Cars driving past slowed down ever so slightly. Then he grabbed her wrist, twisted it, pressed her forward, against the hot hood of the car. People gasped. But no one moved. The moment her purse hit the ground, the keys spilled beside it, and so did the illusion that success could shield her from ignorance. Leona didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just whispered, "You're making a mistake." And he replied, coldly, "The only mistake here is pretending like I don't see what's in front of me." But what he didn't see was who was watching. Just across the street, inside a black sedan with tinted windows, someone sat frozen, phone in hand, eyes narrowed. Her name was Captain Reagan Morales, Federal Counterintelligence, temporarily assigned to the Department of Homeland Security. She had been on her way to a private meeting with Leona, not because Leona was in trouble, but because the federal government was about to sign a $400 million tech deal with her company. She was supposed to meet Leona at that cafe in 15 minutes, but fate had brought her early. And now, she wasn't just watching. She was already dialing. Across town, just a few blocks away, a city bus pulled into a crowded stop. Darren Jacobs, 17 years old, fresh from basketball practice, headphones hanging from his neck, looked up as an older, tired-looking pregnant woman stepped onto the bus. No one moved. She clutched the rail quietly, eyes searching. Without thinking, Darren stood up and said softly, "Ma'am, you can take my seat." She looked surprised, then smiled. "Thank you, young man. That means more than you know." He nodded and stood near the door. But just before the bus rolled forward again, she pulled something from her bag, a small folded paper. She handed it to Darren and said only, "Open this when you get home. And remember. Sometimes small things start big fires." Then she smiled again, almost sadly, and sat down. Darren held the note in his hand, puzzled, but something in her eyes made him not throw it away. Back at the scene, Leona was now surrounded. A second cop car had arrived. People were filming now, not whispering anymore, but speaking loud. "Yo, she didn't do anything. Why's she being treated like that? Man, this is messed up." One woman, recording with her phone, said to her daughter, "That's Leona Brooks." the one who built that free tech center for the kids. I met her once. She's not a criminal, but the officer still hadn't backed off. Until a sleek black SUV pulled up hard beside them. Doors flew open, and three individuals stepped out, suits, earpieces, and government credentials flashing in the sun. The crowd went silent, and one voice cut through it all. Let her go. Immediately, the cop turned, stunned. Who are you? Federal agents. You're interfering with a federal contract partner. Step back and hand her, right now. The cop's face drained. He looked around, now realizing who this woman really was. But it was too late. Cameras had caught it all. And behind every shocked bystander, a new storm was quietly rising. Because tonight, this wouldn't stay just a video on someone's phone. It would explode. In the press. In the court. And in lives that hadn't even crossed yet, not knowing that a folded note in a teenager's backpack was about to pull him into the fire. The cop stepped back, hands up, confused, shaken. He had no idea who he had just manhandled in front of a dozen witnesses, in broad daylight, with cameras rolling. Leona slowly pulled herself upright, adjusted her sleeve, and reached down to pick up her purse without a word. She didn't look at the officer. She didn't need to. The look on his face said everything. One of the federal agents walked between them. You will be hearing from the Department of Justice. Immediately, the cop looked like he wanted to melt into the pavement. His partner stood frozen near the cruiser, mouth slightly open, eyes darting to the phones, recording every second of his colleague's failure. Captain Reagan Morales walked over to Leona and placed a hand lightly on her shoulder. Ma'am, are you all right? Leona didn't answer right away. She was watching the officer who had touched her without reason. Her voice, when it finally came, was low but uncheckable. I'm fine, but I'm done being quiet. That one sentence made Reagan's spine straighten. We'll handle this. Let's get you inside. As they turned toward the cafe, the crowd began murmuring louder. Some clapped softly. Others just shook their heads in disbelief. Leona walked with the kind of dignity that can't be taught. The kind that comes from years of being underestimated, misjudged, and still rising. This wasn't her first time facing racism, but it felt like the last time she'd let it slide. She didn't cry. She didn't yell, but something in her shifted, and the world was about to feel it. Meanwhile, several blocks away, the bus rattled past an old gas station as Darren leaned against the window, earbuds in but no music playing. His thumb ran slowly over the folded note in his palm. He hadn't opened it yet. His mind was stuck on the woman's face, the tired eyes, the quiet voice, and the way she looked at him like he had done something more than just give up a seat. The bus stopped. He stepped off and walked the last few blocks home, head low, thoughts spinning. At the corner of 9th and Raleigh, he paused at the steps to his apartment building. Something told him this wasn't just a thank you note, not the way she had handed it to him, not the look she gave right before the doors closed. He climbed the stairs, opened the front door, and stepped inside. His mom called from the kitchen. You eat anything yet? Nah. I'm good, he said, heading to his room. He closed the door, sat on the edge of his bed, and stared at the note. Then finally, he unfolded it. At first, he thought it was blank. But in the center of the page, written in the neatest handwriting he'd ever seen, was a single line. My name is Eleanor Grace Hamilton. If you're reading this, I've already found you. Darren blinked. Who? He flipped the note over. A phone number. No explanation. He sat still for a moment, then pulled out his phone. He dialed. It rang once, twice. Then a calm female voice answered. I was hoping you'd call. He sat straight. I'm Darren, from the bus. You gave me this note. I know who you are. Sit down, Darren. He was already sitting. The voice continued. You did something today that very few people do. You saw someone struggling and you helped, without needing to be asked, without knowing anything about them. I've been watching people like you. Watching. I run a foundation. Quiet, hidden. For kids who make the world better, one small decision at a time. And today, you qualified. Darren's throat tightened. Wait, is this some kind of joke? The woman paused. No, it's an opportunity. Check your front door. Darren stood, walked slowly, and opened the apartment door. A small brown envelope sat on the welcome mat. He looked both ways down the hall. Empty. He picked it up and opened it. Inside was a card with gold trim and a letter addressed to his full name. At the bottom, a scholarship offer, full ride, any university, any state. No application needed. His hand shook. Why me? He asked softly into the phone. Because the world doesn't change through big speeches. It changes when a kid, like you, decides to stand, even if it's just by giving up a seat. He didn't know what to say. She spoke again. One more thing, turn on the news. He walked over to the TV, switched it on. Every local channel had broken into live coverage. Billionaire CEO Leona Brooks wrongfully detained by local police. Federal agents intervene in public harassment incident. DOJ launches probe into civil rights violation. Darren stared at the screen. The woman, Leona Brooks, looked familiar. He gasped. He'd seen her before. Her company sponsored his school's computer lab. And then it hit him. This wasn't just about her, or the cop, or even the scholarship. This was something bigger. Something unfolding. And somehow, he was in the middle of it now. That night, the city didn't sleep. Every news channel, local and national, was looping the same footage over and over. A black woman in a navy blue suit, shoved against the hood of her car by a white officer who never even asked her name. What had started as a quiet street incident had now exploded into a national conversation, not because of the cameras, not because of the uniform, but because of who she was. Leona Brooks, founder of Arctech, the woman behind dozens of tech labs in low-income schools, the face on Forbes, who had once turned down a Fortune 100 buyout because she believed kids in Chicago matter more than stock prices. And now, she had been wrongfully detained. Publicly, violently, UNFORGIVABLY. By morning, hashtags were trending. Hashtag justice for Lena. Hashtag she built this. Hashtag power and profile. Reporters swarmed the cafe where it had happened. Protesters gathered outside the police precinct. The officer in question had been put on leave within 12 hours. But inside Leona's penthouse apartment, far from the cameras and chance, silence hung heavy in the room. She stood in front of the massive window, overlooking the city lights, her phone on the table, buzzing constantly. Emails from reporters, calls from lawyers, statements, waiting for her approval, but she hadn't responded to anyone yet. She just watched the skyline. Quiet, calm, but with fire in her eyes. Captain Reagan Morales sat on the couch behind her, flipping through case files. We can go after the department. Hard. DOJ will back you. Leona didn't turn. What's the point? The point is he grabbed you, threw you around. He didn't even know who you were. Leona's voice was flat. Exactly. He didn't know who I was. So imagine what he does to women who aren't billionaires. That silence again. Then Reagan spoke. You want to go public? No. I want to go deeper. I want names, patterns. How many others like me have been mistreated without cameras? I don't need revenge. I need data. Reagan nodded slowly. This wasn't about rage. This was about impact. Leona never moved emotionally. She moved systemically. And this time, she wasn't just coming for one cop. She was coming for every unspoken file, every ignored report, every broken body that had no headline. Meanwhile, across the city, Darren couldn't sleep. He sat on his bed, the letter still open beside him, the TV on low volume in the background. His mom had peeked in twice to ask if he was okay. He lied both times. He wasn't okay. Not because of the scholarship offer, not because of the mystery woman on the phone, but because he had never been part of something like this before. One seat, one note, one call, and suddenly, it was like he had stumbled into a world where things mattered more than they looked. He grabbed the envelope again. Read the signature at the bottom of the offer letter. Eleanor Grace Hamilton, President, the Bridge Initiative Foundation. Looked her up. There was barely anything online. No photos, no interviews, just quiet mentions in academic journals, private grants, anonymous donations in massive amounts. Her foundation wasn't known for marketing. It was known for moving silently and changing lives without asking for credit. Darren leaned back. She had said, "You qualified, but for what?" Then his phone buzzed again. A known number. No caller ID. He hesitated, then picked up. "Hello." "Darren, it's Eleanor." Her voice was calm, warm, but distant, like someone who had seen too much, but still cared. "I assume you've seen the news." "Yeah," Darren replied. "It's everywhere, and I assume you know who Leona Brooks is. She helped my school get new laptops last year. And that robotics lab. She funded that entire program, Eleanor confirmed. Quietly, anonymously, I didn't know. Most people don't. That's how she wanted it. But now it's public. Beat passed. Why are you telling me all this? Darren asked. Because this isn't just about her. It's about what happens when people like you, and people like her, are in the same story. What do you mean? She was attacked. You stood up. You didn't know it, but those two moments are connected. And if you let me show you how, you'll understand the role you're meant to play. Darren's heart beat faster. Rawl, this country doesn't just need billionaires with compassion. It needs young minds who can grow into the kind of people who change rooms just by walking in. That's what you did today. But I didn't do anything. I just gave her a seat. Eleanor paused. That's what Leona did too. She just gave people tools, laptops, programs, access. She gave people a place to sit. And that's what scares people like that officer. Darren sat up straight. The voice in his ear felt heavier now. This isn't about seats, she continued. It's about space. Who gets it? Who gets to take it? And who gets pushed out of it? So, what happens now? Eleanor's voice softened. Now, you step forward. There's a private flight arranged for tomorrow. You'll meet others. Students like you. People with stories like yours. You'll meet Leona too, when the time is right. Darren couldn't speak. He looked around his room, cracked posters on the wall, hand-me-down furniture, broken headphones taped at the sides. He wasn't rich. He wasn't ready, but something told him. He couldn't ignore this. He whispered, "Okay." And the voice said, "Good, because the world's watching now, Darren. And your seat is just the beginning." The officer, still unaware of who he had just manhandled, strutted back to his squad car with that same cocky swagger. He didn't realize that a camera on a nearby building had recorded everything from the moment he grabbed her to the exact second he shoved her against her luxury vehicle. And he had no idea that someone much more powerful than him was already watching the footage. Live, inside a tinted black SUV parked across the street, a man in a sharp gray suit leaned forward from the back seat, his assistant, seated beside. The driver turned to him and said, "That's her. That's the woman the mayor invited for the tech summit. And that's the cop." The man didn't respond immediately. He just stared at the screen, jaw tightening. She didn't even resist. He finally said, his voice low, steady, and he still heard her. Across town, the boy from the bus Jalen was sitting on the steps of his mother's small apartment building, still holding the note the pregnant woman had handed him. His hands were trembling slightly, not because he was scared, but because what she wrote inside was unlike anything he had expected. It read, "Dear young man, I saw your kindness, and I don't believe in accidents. I don't think we met by chance. I'm not just a pregnant woman. I'm someone looking for people exactly like you. This isn't a reward, it's an invitation." There was a number below, and a location. That's all. Jalen looked up at the cloudy sky, confused, nervous but curious. He didn't know it yet, but this moment was about to become the turning point of his entire life. Meanwhile, at the precinct, Officer Travis, the cop who had attacked the woman, was bragging to his colleagues about the attitude she gave him. He twisted the story completely, saying she was aggressive, refused to cooperate, and had no ID. A few officers chuckled. Others just kept quiet, but no one questioned him. And just then, his radio beeped. A message came through. "Officer Travis, report to the chief's office immediately." He rolled his eyes and got up. "Probably more paperwork," he muttered. But when he stepped into the chief's office, he froze. The room wasn't empty. 3 men in black suits were already seated inside. One of them had a federal badge on the table in front of him. "Sit down, Officer Travis," the chief said, his tone flat and unreadable. Travis hesitated, then dropped into the chair. "What's going on?" One of the suited men looked at him and said, "You assaulted someone this morning, a woman in a black business suit, driving a silver Bentley." "Ring a bell." Travis blinked. "Yeah, she had an attitude. I asked her to show ID and she didn't resist." "And you hurt her. She was suspicious. She's a billionaire," the man said sharply. "She funds 3 federal departments, including ours." Travis's face turned pale. "Wait, what?" The door opened again, and in walked the woman he had thrown against her car, her walk calm, powerful, her presence radiating silence that demanded attention. No yelling, no anger on her face, just eyes that saw straight through him. Travis stood, unsure if he should apologize, run, or explain, but she spoke first. You judged me because of what you thought I was, she said quietly. Not because of who I am. Then she leaned forward and whispered something to one of the federal agents. The man nodded. The woman turned to leave. Travis tried to speak. Ma'am, I didn't mean, but the agent raised his hand. She's not just filing a complaint, the agent said. She's opening an internal federal review of this entire department. Travis sat back down, breathless. And outside that same station, the black SUV was still parked, quietly waiting. Inside, the man in the suit received a message. The file is ready. Jalen Carter, age 17, bring him in. A storm was building, and not the kind that comes with thunder. That evening, Jalen stood in front of a large, steel and glass building downtown. The address from the note had led him here. His sneakers were still a bit dusty. His hoodie was clean but faded. He looked out of place among the black cars and suited professionals walking in and out of the building. But the security guard at the front entrance looked up and nodded. You're Jalen Carter. He hesitated. Why, yeah. The man gave a small smile and stepped aside. They're expecting you. Jalen swallowed hard and stepped inside. The lobby was massive. High ceilings, a waterfall wall, no loud noise, just the low hum of power. He was led into an elevator that didn't have buttons, only a scanner. The guard tapped a card, and the elevator began to rise. Fast. When the doors opened, Jalen's eyes widened. It looked like a boardroom straight out of a movie. Glass walls overlooking the city, a long table, sleek furniture. And standing at the head of the table was her. The pregnant woman from the bus. But this time, she wasn't in a simple dress. She wore a navy blue suit tailored like armor. Her hair was pulled back, and beside her stood two advisors, watching Jalen curiously. You made it, she said with a gentle smile. Yeah. I don't know what this is, Jalen admitted, eyes darting around. She walked forward. It's an opportunity. I watched you that day on the bus. You didn't know who I was, and still, you gave without expecting anything. Jalen stayed quiet, still overwhelmed. She handed him a folder. Inside was his name and a full scholarship form. I run a foundation, she continued. We don't just give handouts. We invest in future leaders, quiet warriors with loud hearts. Like you. Jalen blinked at the papers, stunned. It wasn't just a scholarship. It included housing, mentorship, travel, everything. But why me? He asked. Because I was you once, she said softly. And because you never know who's watching when you do the right thing. Meanwhile, back at the police department, the internal review was already tearing through records. Files were pulled, videos checked. Officer Travis was suspended indefinitely, but it didn't stop there. Several other officers, those who turned blind eyes, ignored complaints, or filed false reports, were also named in the probe. The chief was forced to resign within 48 hours, and all across the city, whispers began spreading. The woman Officer Travis assaulted, she wasn't just any billionaire. She was the silent partner behind the largest youth tech initiative in the state. The one who advised senators behind closed doors. The one who could make or break city funding with one call. And now she had a name. Tiana Brooks. Black. Brilliant. Billionaire. And unforgiving when pushed too far. But her real power wasn't just in her money, it was in how she used it. Quietly, strategically, to lift people like Jalen out of invisibility and into influence. Later that week, a headline flashed across every major news site. Teen's act of kindness on bus leads to $1 million opportunity funded by woman cop called suspicious. And in a private room, Tiana stood by the window, looking out over the city lights. Her assistant stepped beside her. Everything's in motion, she said. The cleanup, the media, the department restructuring. Tiana nodded slowly. Then turned. Good, she said. Now let's find the next Jalen, because the war wasn't over, but she had just fired her opening shot. 3 weeks had passed since that explosive headline shook the city, but the ripple effects were only just beginning. The police department had gone quiet on the outside, but inside, it was chaos. Investigations, resignations, and hushed whispers of federal probes filled the halls. Officer Travis, still suspended, now under investigation for not just excessive force but falsified reports, harassment, and potential bribery. And someone had leaked the bus stop footage. The entire internet had seen it now. People were furious, but Tiana Brooks, she wasn't finished. Not even close. Her moves had only just begun. While the city reeled, she sat in a quiet, window-lit cafe across town, sipping herbal tea. Her bodyguards sat at the far end, giving her space. Across the table from her sat a young woman in a wrinkled, uniformed Camila, the Latino waitress who had once worked at the same restaurant where Officer Travis used to harass low-income patrons. Tiana had heard about her, and now she was listening. He'd park outside and watch us, Camila said, her voice shaking. We weren't doing anything, just trying to work. But he'd pick on anyone brown or black. My cousin got stopped for walking home with a soda. Tiana's expression didn't change, but her hand tightened around the teacup. What happened to your cousin? He lost his job, Camila whispered. They thought he was stealing. He wasn't, but the police report said he fled, and had suspected items on him. That was a lie. He had a sandwich and a water bottle. Tiana reached into her bag and slid a card across the table. Tell your cousin to call this number, today. Camilla's eyes widened. What is it? Restoration. Tiana said. And maybe justice. Outside, a black SUV waited, engine running. Jalen sat inside, watching everything unfold through the tinted window. It had been weeks since that first meeting in the glass building. Since then, his life had changed fast: orientation, mentorship, sessions, even media training. But today, Tiana wanted him to see something. To see how quiet power works. She always like this? He asked the driver. The man chuckled. She was worse before the billions. Meanwhile, across the city, someone else was watching too. A tall, sharp-faced man in a navy suit scrolled through headlines and private emails in his office. His name was Alan Griggs, deputy mayor. He'd built his political rise through alliances, with the same departments now under fire. And Tiana's name showing up on so many lips was a problem. A dangerous one. He closed his laptop and picked up the phone. Get me the commissioner. I need a meeting. Now. Because while the public was applauding Tiana, people like Griggs were planning their defense. And not everyone in power wanted the truth to come out. Back at Tiana's estate, a gated mansion far from the city noise, Jalen sat with a notebook open, jotting ideas. He was sketching something. A community center blueprint, a place where kids like him could study, learn tech, and stay off the streets. Tiana walked past and smiled when she saw it. You thinking like a builder now? I'm thinking like you, he said. She raised an eyebrow. Then you're already dangerous. But before she could say more, her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. You've made enemies, Miss Brooks. Be careful where you walk alone. Not all shadows sleep. She stared at it silently. No fear on her face, just steel. She handed the phone to her aide. Track it. I want to know who sent this, and where they're hiding. Because Tiana wasn't just fighting to clear her name or Jalen's future. She was building something bigger. A network. A movement. One that wasn't asking for permission anymore. And the people in power, they were running out of time.